Hey guys, hey everybody. Today I'm back with another episode on how to recognize a cult. And in today's episode, I want to talk a little bit about black and white thinking, which this is a sign of being in a cult, this all or nothing or extremely and rigid thinking. I want to read a little bit what the Google AI has generated for this black and white thinking category. It says, it often ignores the complexities and shades of gray that exists in between. It can interfere with your health, relationships, and career. Additionally, during this stage of development, young people often have a black and white thinking progress. This means that they often cognitively process things with no middle ground. Things are good or bad. Cult organizations often have strict sets of rules or beliefs. So, in a way, it is almost like you didn't mature past this black and white, all or nothing. There's no gray area thinking. And when I took psychology in college, one of the things I learned is that there's like a higher level of wrong and right, or having a conscience. And it is the story that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. The husband and his wife, she's dying of cancer, and they cannot afford her medication. So in order to save her life, he steals the medication. And this is a black and white situation for Jehovah's Witnesses, and for most people, really. They would say it's wrong to steal the medication, end of story. But there's actually, and this actually stems from the Kohlberg-Heinz dilemma study, and it talks about the different stages of how we develop our moral understanding. And so there's a higher set of moral development that is lacking in a lot of people, and it really encompasses like having compassion and human dignity. Because yes, it's wrong to steal the drug, and definitely as a Jehovah's Witness, you would get disfellowship for stealing the drug, right? But a higher level of compassion, and in a way also what Jesus explained when he said that you can break the law on the Sabbath to rescue a life. So actually, Jesus here showed us that this higher level of moral is okay. It wasn't black and white. It wasn't rules and regulation when he said it's okay to break the Sabbath to save a life of an animal, nonetheless. Still alive, right? So this brings us to this black and white thinking that also keeps us immature in a way. Because if we would really think, really allow us to think and talk about the blood issue, for example. I mean, it is crazy that God would want you to die or let your children die to refuse blood. But it was very black and white. The Bible says abstain from blood. So the society says no blood transfusion. And so we as obedient publishers of the congregation said, okay, I accept that. And I mean, hopefully most of us have not been in that situation where our life or our children's life was at risk. But the reality of it is many Jehovah's Witnesses' life was at risk. And they have that Awake or Watchtower magazine cover where all the children that have died are on the cover because they abstained from blood. And we deem it as them having been faithful to God, and they have secured their everlasting life in paradise by rejecting blood, by rejecting living right here and right now on earth, right now, right? And yet, we didn't think that this was a beyond black and white issue, that God probably would not want us to sacrifice our children. And we didn't allow ourselves to think further that how culty it is, like in Jonestown, when people obeyed the leader and lost their life. It is no different with a blood issue. And plus, the Bible was written when it says abstain from blood. That was meant because the Romans actually drank blood. And that's not sanitary. That was probably a really good health rule. Things like blood transfusions did not even exist at the time. So how are we using this book and then compared with modern medicine? It's not even feasible, but that's a whole nother story. Right now we're talking about black and white thinking and having that higher moral sense that there are issues that are gray areas. As Jehovah's Witnesses, we learn a lot of times there's either Satan's side or there is Jehovah's side. You cannot be in the middle. You cannot be in the gray area. I remember hearing many times that if you're sitting on the fence, you're already on the devil's side. So that we learn there's no where to be in the middle. And that kind of also shoots down like your critical thinking abilities, because everything we did in life, we checked it with the society's rules and then did those. So we don't allow ourselves to think through the things that are at hand, to have a higher moral consciousness. And I will say this, when you have compassion, which as a Christian you're supposed to have compassion, sometimes I think we do display the higher moral conscience, because, for example, I was in the nursing room with a sister who was disfellowshipped. We both had newborn babies. It felt ridiculous not to talk to her in there. It felt so stupid. We're in this tiny room together nursing our kids. I totally talked to her. I talked to her mom to mom. I guess I had to kind of shut my conscience off, that I felt wrong about it. But it felt more wrong to shun her in that situation. And I really thought that the morally right thing to do is to talk to her at that moment. And so sometimes I think in little things maybe we did display the higher moral ground, the not black and white thinking. And I have another incident that really made me think of this story today too. We had rented with some other witness families, it was kind of like a bed and breakfast in Europe, and the lady downstairs who was renting out all the rooms to all these families that we all traveled together, she would make, breakfast, and she would bring us snacks and stuff. And it was New Year's Eve. We were all upstairs with the other witness families, and this lovely host lady who was elderly, she went up the stairs with a tray full of champagne glasses. I mean, just to carry this tray upstairs with all these glasses filled with champagne was such a kindness of her, a worldly person, right? And she wanted to do something good for us. And immediately the outspoken sister that was with us shut it down. she kind of scolded the lady of the house, like, how can you give this to us? We're Jehovah's Witnesses. We don't drink champagne on New Year's. I mean, so this poor lady had to, like, take her whole tray full of full glasses back downstairs. Down the stairs with all these flutes filled to the rim. And my mom at the time thought, dang, that was so mean. That was really cruel. This lady doesn't know we don't celebrate New Year's. She's trying to do a good deed. She's trying to be kind and show kindness. And instead of you saying thank you, and then just like maybe not drink it or something, or say thank you and then just be like, oh, we can't have this right now. Just be really kind. This ultra mega J-dub had to shoot it down to like show everyone, get away from me, Satan. I will refuse this tray of champagne right now because that would displease God. And every time I hear a story like that, I think, meanwhile, we had pedophiles in the congregations that apparently didn't displease God. Like, come on. Do you think God cared if you would have had some of that champagne? I think God would care much more that you were cruel and unkind. And so my mom here was really thinking past the black and white, the this is wrong versus this is right. But she allowed herself to go to that gray area like, oh my gosh, show kindness. There's more to this incident. And really, what always baffles me too is Jehovah's Witnesses are so hung up on like having a good reputation and not ruining their reputation. And, and when you do stuff like that, you are ruining your own reputation as a religion because you're being a jerk. That lady's going to think badly of J-dubs from here on out, thinking these are like some psycho lunatic extremists who wouldn't even take a little bit of champagne on New Year's. I mean, it's just so true. So this is just what I wanted to talk about a little bit. And let me hear in comments what you guys have to add of your instances of black and white thinking where there should have been a little bit of a gray area. So thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you guys soon.